go Broncos. Welcome to Let's Talk Broncos. Bree Maestas, I am back. Zach Seegers, Joey Richards. Guys, did you miss me?
Super, Bree. Oh my God, did I miss you? Woo!
Wow.
It was exhausting.
That's exhausting sitting through that. We're here to break down bold predictions for Broncos training camp. And I just asked the fellows right before I hit live whether or not they count towards season totals. As you know, Let's Talk Broncos loves to make bold predictions prior to every game. Now, last year we did preseason games. We had a little bit of a voters' rights disagreement. I feel like it swung the results in a certain way when we counted preseason versus not counting preseason. Either way, I lost. I don't really want to contribute to that. But how do you guys feel about using the bold training camp predictions in the season total? Now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't know if I agree with it, but I want to hear what you guys think.
I mean, I can't wait for you guys to outvote me and then get mad that whatever decision you two landed on cost you a victory. I can't wait for that. That's going to be great. Because last year I was saying we should be counting preseason, and it was preseason. It's a warm up. And then the season happens. I win. And then it's like, well, if you count the preseason stat, it was your idea not to count the preseason stats. So I think we should count it all personally. That's my vote. But I can't wait for this to come back and burn me anyways.
Just like last year, I think it should count. I don't remember having a vote last year on if it should count or not. Zach just took the liberty of saying it didn't count, which was the difference between me winning or Zach winning. So he just took the liberty. He said, you know what, preseason, those bold predictions, throw all those Joey W's away. And then it somehow gave him the win. I don't know. It just seems a little convenient that the scorekeeper's making the rules. Anyway. I do think that it should count. Zach, I'm happy you brought this to the table this year. Thank you so much. Man, big changes coming from our score guy here. Bree, what is your opinion?
Well, now that we're having insults hurled in our direction, I think we have to count them. I think we just have to go bold, although there's always a question every single episode of whether or not the bold predictions are bold enough. So bear with us as we get our sea legs back underneath us and figure out if we're being bold enough in our predictions as we're ramping up for training camp. I say we count them. So is that 3 votes for counting them?
Yep.
Okay. And I will dutifully complain when I lose yet again and come up with some.
Well, if you look at just the regular season, which is how we did it last year, I'd already know.
Oh, you've got me figured out. If you're keeping if you're keeping track at home, we got to do like a thermometer or like a tracking board so everyone else can watch along. If you want to drop some of your own bold predictions for training camp, go ahead and hop on over into the chat. We're live on YouTube. You search Let's Talk Broncos, or you can find the links over on letstalkbroncos.com. You can also find a lot of articles over there. I believe the most recent is a positional breakdown for the offensive line.
Guards and centers.
Guards and centers. Who doesn't want to read about guards and centers? All right. I'm gonna hop into it. I want to throw mine in the hat because it's going to get this ball rolling in kind of the theme as Denver, Colorado. Cody Daly was chiming in here saying it's 8:00. Let's talk Broncos. It's 6 p.m. Mountain Time over here. And Mountain Time's waiting for a little bit of a heat wave to come tumbling through here, which, if you're keeping track, that's 100-degree days, 4 in a row here for Denver, Colorado. Not unheard of, but it's supposed to be monsoon season. We're not getting any sort of relief there. So end of July, start of August, there's 16 open training camps to fans, and I'm only going to be considering those since those are the most viable for people to attend. I don't know, guys. I'm saying 5 of those are going to be 98 degrees or warmer. And I know this falls into Joey's wheelhouse because he absolutely cannot stand the sun. So I want to preface this with saying it's in general just to make Joey uncomfortable that I think this is going to happen. But 5 of the 16 open to the public dates are 98 degrees or hotter. And I think this is going to set the tone for training camp in general. Now I'm going to need you to put your meteorologist hat on, not the tinfoil hat, the meteorologist hat, and let me know how you think of that one. higher or lower?
Dang. What is it at any point during training camp or like start of training camp? When are we reading the thermometer?
I think that's a great parameter that we need to set in place. I would say, it's going to give me the benefit if I consider the first date in which like rookies have to report. But I to start this said the first open. Oh, the time of day? Any time in the day. So what if the day register, it doesn't have to be 98 degrees at training camp, but it has to at some point in Denver, which is the DIA weather point, hit the 98 degrees point for that to count for the entire day. Like I'm not holding a thermometer out there on the berm.
Zach's asking all these questions. The answer is yes. Bree is gonna do that, especially on that damn hill. I don't. If I pull out my little, if I'm checking the temp and I'm on that hill, it might be 105 5 of those days. It's gonna be crazy. I'm gonna leave with the sunburn. I'm gonna pull up to 2 of them, and 2 of those days are gonna be like 100. It's gonna be terrible. I am not taking you up on that bet because I agree with you. I think that it's going to be over that, even maybe. So, Zach, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, this ain't 2015 anymore, guys. This is 2024. And summers in 2024 and beyond are a little bit hotter. And I think 98 is going to be easy. A third of the days, 98 degrees. We're already in mid or early July. And to Bree's point, we've got on the forecast here Friday, Saturday, Sunday at 99, 99, and 101 degrees. If we had one heat wave like that in late July, I'm screwed. I'm almost screwed. She just needs 2 more hot days in August, and then she's got it. I'm rolling with her on this one. I refuse to bet against the 5 hot days. I think there will be 5 at least.
It's just the way of the heat miser. You might be wondering why I'm adjusting the temperature of my screen, and that's because I checked over on Twitter to retweet the pod, and I look as red as a tomato. So maybe my bold prediction was somewhat in line with the amount of sun that I got in the great state of Missouri. If you want to take any sort of bets of how tan I will get during training camp, go ahead and drop them in the comments because you guys love to comment about how orange I end up during the season. Alrighty, guys. I think you're both right and smart in agreeing with me. That means I probably won't get any points, and that's fine.
You either all lose a point or we all gain a point. It's even either way on this one.
I kind of like that, though. It just sort of sends us all for a tizzy in this path. I think I made things worse than I made myself warmer, and I'm just going to deal with it, folks. Let's head on over to Zach. I want you to give us your first bold prediction for training camp. I feel like you have a doozy cooked up for us, sizzling, in fact.
I hate myself. I just
that was a record right there. That one was a record.
I don't think that was a record.
Was at least 6 seconds. Can we get a count?
The last one was longer. The last one was like 15 or something.
No. That one was crazy.
That was not good. I was looking at the notes on my phone where I've written down all my predictions. That was terrible.
I couldn't help you.
I do have a spicy one. I've been doing so good. It's been like 3 or 4 shows since I screwed up.
How many people do you think were trying to check their volume? Hey, if you were in the chat trying to figure out if your volume wasn't working, let me know. Anyways.
Yeah.
Paul's bold prediction is Zach is muted again by the time training camp's over. That's not bold, Paul. That's evergreen.
I was on such a good streak too. It had been like a good handful of episodes since I had gotten myself. And that one was so bad. Okay. I do have a spicy one. I'm saving my spiciest one for the end is basically what I was saying during that long muted segment. I still have one for right off the bat here though. Yeah, let's go with this. I'm saying someone not named Riley Moss is starting opposite Patrick Surtain at cornerback in base defense looks.
I disagree with you. I'm going to take you up on this bet. I think Riley Moss does start at corner this year, just off of investment. You have the same defensive coordinator rolling it back this year with that guy he drafted. I would be kind of shocked if Riley Moss didn't win this one. I think Riley Moss is going to be your starting cornerback this year. The only caveat is injury. If injury does happen, I expect Levi Wallace to take that role. But I think Riley Moss is starting this next year. Yeah, I think he's the shoe-in starter. There's a couple things, and that's why I lean that way. I do see your point. If he just has a terrible preseason or something like that, I could see your point. I think Levi Wallace then slides into that starting unit. I think the favorite, and I'm going to bet off the favorite. If I have better odds this way, I'm going that way, is going to be Riley Moss this year.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Joey. That was going to be my first question, was what's the alternative, right? Like, how do you sweeten that pot any further? It's Levi Wallace, or who should be starting in general is Riley Moss. I think for posterity's sake, although I agree that it's got to be Riley Moss, I say something happens that prohibits that from happening. So once again, I'm going to need a reminder on how to answer this question.
So you're rolling with me. You're not taking the bet. Joey is. Well, you should have explained the game. We haven't played it in a year.
Yeah. We just we're all confused and muted, and I didn't even have controls to start the podcast. I think it's important. Again, we're getting our feet wet once again, getting back into the groove of things, and making the people laugh along the way. As the Zach is going to have to explain it, because I still don't play by the rules. That's just how I roll.
Yeah. So how the game basically works, we already did an example round, but we're going to go around throwing out bold predictions. So I just threw one out, saying someone not named Riley Moss is starting at cornerback opposite Patrick Surtain in base defense. So not nickel, not dime. For other people. Now Joey disagrees with that. He's saying it's going to be Riley Moss. So he's taking me on that bet. He's betting against me. Bree isn't taking that bet. She is taking the field just like I am. So she'll pass on that bet. And then we'll tally up, how these bets end up going. Everyone will be a point for one person or the other, unless no one takes it. And then, we'll tally it up at the end and see how it goes. That's what we're talking about. We'll do some sort of punishments. By the way, for hitting 2,000 subscribers, I'm having to do the spicy thing. I think I'm planning to do that at one of these training camp practices. So stay tuned for that, everybody.
I watched some people eat that spicy chip. Zach, you're going to be a hell.
I don't know how to get the chip. I might do like the hot
I'll get the chip. But anyways, shout out to last year's winner, me. That's all. Anyways, can we get back to the game?
Yeah, we can, Joey.
Sorry, I wanted Joe or Bree asked who are the alternatives here, and I do think you guys look past who would be my favorite in this race, who I think is going to ruin it potentially for Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan. I'm not sure they'll do this. He might just be nickel only, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they come to the end of training camp and they decide, why are we getting cute with this? Jaquan McMillan is a really good cornerback. We're going to play him out there. Now, yes, he is very, very small, and that's the reason he hasn't been put outside sooner. However, here in Broncos country, we're like 2-3 years removed from seeing Bryce Callahan lined up out wide on a regular basis. Why? Because he was clearly one of the Broncos' best cornerbacks, and they weren't going to get cute with it. Remember that awesome interception he had against Mike Williams? It was like the prototypical big-bodied receiver. So I don't know. That's one I would point out. You guys also didn't mention Damari Mathis, who at least is worth a mention. Last year was atrocious. But corner's a high variance position, as demonstrated from Damari Mathis looking promising as a rookie and then absolutely dreadful as a sophomore player. I don't think it's unthinkable he looks fine again in his third year.
I feel like this is a conspiracy theory. You might as well throw Chris Abrams' drain out there, both listed as the nickelback on the depth chart there. So I see where you're going with this.
I don't think McMillan's an outside corner. That's why I'm betting against that. I don't think so. And Zach, if memory serves me correct, Bryce Callahan started that game because of injuries. Not
that game. It was an extended stretch. He was out there.
It was, but it was because of injuries. If my memory serves me there. So I definitely don't. I don't think Jaquan McMillan is lining up outside and pressing anybody. I don't think he's doing anything like that. And you need to do that as an outside corner. You need to do that. And I don't think Jaquan McMillan has the length or size or any of that to do that. It takes a very special cornerback to be like 5'10", if not shorter than that, and be able to get in somebody's face. I just think that was out of necessity. Like, the Broncos corners sucked. It was, if I remember correctly, wasn't it Bosby who was slotted as that second corner that year, who they signed to like a minimum and then let go the year after? I just don't think that is what's going to happen this year. I think the Broncos are going to play Damari Mathis in that role instead of Jaquan McMillan. I think they would play Riley Moss in that role instead of Jaquan McMillan. And also even Levi Wallace, definitely Levi Wallace as well. And it's not a slight to Jaquan McMillan. He's a nickel cornerback, and he's a damn good one. He might be the best pound-for-pound corner outside Patrick Surtain on this team. He absolutely is, matter of fact. He's just not going to be lining up on the outside. Yeah, that's not his position to me.
I disagree. I think there's a better chance of it.
Denny coming into the chat saying, I think that the DBs will be coached for positional versatility by Jim Leonhard. I love that point. I think that backs up both of the guys in this conversation. However, I still think I lean on the sense that it's wild. Zach, I'm going to give you an extra brownie point for being so bold. I think that that's appropriate given the structure of this game. So kudos to you. And I know Joey loves to give you hell because you're never bold enough. So way to step it up this season.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Really quick, just because I was curious when Joey asked the question. That year, the other top cornerbacks on the roster, and it wasn't because of injury. Bryce Callahan started the season as one of the wide corners or boundary corners.
I thought that Chargers game was his first one doing that. I swear.
Maybe, but didn't he sign in 2020? In 2020, week 1, he's playing 66 snaps at wide corner. But if he came in 2019, maybe that Chargers game happened in 2019. But week 1 of 2020, he's playing the lion's share. He's actually tracking, I think, their best receiver in that week 1 game, because he also has a healthy deal in the slot. In week 4, it's split almost right down the middle between the two. But on the season, 400 snaps out wide, he was pretty it's like 80% of his snaps. And again, I agree with Joey. It takes a rare player to be able to do that. I think Jaquan McMillan might be that rare. Like the Bryce Callahan was an undrafted player too. These guys aren't, like, there are very, very few of them. And in that sense, they're rare, but it's not like you have to be an elite cornerback prospect.
That's wild though. You're using Bryce Callahan as your like emphasis on supporting this case, when I can go back to specific shows in where you were, I think, against Callahan. I was staunchly on board, and I feel like you were strongly against.
I mean, I think my articles will point against that. I might have been against paying him a ton of money when he was set to go. I think I was okay with him walking, I think is what it was. And I think there's reason for that. He was in his, 30s and has a really rough injury history. But in terms of like small corners playing much bigger than they are, I mean, Bryce Callahan is the prototype, at least to my knowledge. I'm sure there's a better example out there somewhere, but that I can think of. I think of Steve Smith at wide receiver. I think of Bryce Callahan at corner. It's unreal. Though I do agree with Joey. It takes a rare player. Cornerbacks that year: Michael Ojemudia, Bryce Callahan, AJ Bouye. So yuck.
And if I'm not mistaken, did not Bouye tear his ACL in that offseason? Or
No,
he got injured. Was that the year before? He only played a little bit. I remember him and Jarrell Casey.
He was opposite Bryce for the start of the season. Then he gets injured and Ojemudia came in.
Got it. That's what it was. Okay.
But Bryce was there Bryce was there until he got injured because it was Bryce Callahan. But
that was a terrible DB unit, Doug. Ojemudia. Shout out to him. Hasn't he kind of resurrected his career a little bit?
I'm not sure where he is right now, if I'm being honest. But I will say to counter the one thing about, well, that cornerback group was so bad and it kind of happened for Callahan out of necessity. I don't think it's that crazy that this cornerback group could be in a very similar spot, especially if you know you have Patrick Surtain to work with, a guy who you don't just have to place on the left side or the right side. You could ask, so you can avoid having like a ridiculous size mismatch dictated to you with having that piece like Patrick Surtain. And I don't know. I think if Riley Moss isn't a hit, I think you're in a very similar spot to Ojemudia and AJ Bouye in 2020 in terms of trying to figure out who you're going to throw out there opposite Surtain.
Fair enough. Shall I get to my bold prediction?
Took the words right out of my mouth there, Joseph.
Okay, my bold prediction is that Sean Payton will pretend like there's a quarterback competition through at least week 1 of the preseason. I don't think any starter will be named at all, and I think everyone will be talking about a quarterback competition in Denver through week 1 of the preseason. Thoughts, Zach Seegers, NFL.
I can't let it happen to you again.
Bree, you go first.
He just completely goes, no, Joey, I think that's the way of the world for Sean Payton. I think he loves to keep everybody guessing, including those closest to him. And honestly, there's no rush to name a starter, especially if you're splitting snaps the way that they have been going. I think that you'll just see by a natural progression that Zach Wilson will probably just continue to get less. You're not really trying to make it known to the rest of the NFL that he has a chance at that starting job. But between Jarrett Stidham and Bo Nix, I think there will be hefty conversation about who's performing better. While all along, I believe Sean Payton's plan will be to start Bo Nix unless something very crazy happens. And I assume that's going to be some weird, he's got vertigo and he can no longer perform sort of deal. So, I think that, keep it guessing, keep it a little bit weird. That's appropriate for I think the methodology that you'll see from Sean Payton, and that'll tie directly into what my next prediction is going to be. So I'll leave it floating there in the ether. Zach, I'm curious to know if you think differently, or if you think that they'll highlight a starting quarterback any sooner than after the first preseason game. That's an interesting caveat, though, Joey. You think that it'll only be through the first preseason and not at the end of the preseason.
Yeah, I think it's through week 1, at least week 1. I know this is going to irritate Zach, which is why I'm doing this, because there will be quarterbacks splitting snaps. And I know Zach's stance on this. Don't split snaps with your quarterback. If he's the quarterback 1, give him the snaps. Let him improve, which I think is a fair argument. I just don't think it's the way the Broncos will go. So I'm curious, Zach, if you agree or disagree with me.
Yeah, and I would say that's generally if it's a fake competition. Now, if there's enough of a gap between Stidham and Nix that you're like, Nix is going to sit the first half of the year, then yeah, make sure the guy who's starting the first half of your games is ready to roll. But if it's a faux competition, which I think this probably is, what are we doing? Are you giving Jarrett Stidham more snaps than the normal backup gets? If we're all so confident that Nix is probably starting week 1 anyways. It's funny though, Joey, I can't bet against this at all. I had literally the exact same prediction written down. Bo Nix is officially named the team starter before preseason week 2. Or I guess what you're saying no earlier than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little interesting. I do think it'll be hard to name him the starter before the game. I think that's why, or no, I don't even think that's why I highlighted or circled for my prediction before preseason week 2, because I think there's a pretty healthy chance. I wouldn't be surprised if they lock it down before preseason week 1. But I think there's a healthy chance they're like, hey, we're going to give Bo Nix, the starters reps, but we'll see how it goes. And, or maybe they do Stidham starters for that first game. And Bo Nix looks good enough to flip it. I think it's going to happen pretty early, though. That would be the one area I guess I disagree with you on. I just don't think it's going to be. I'm not confident enough to bet against you before the very first game happens. I had the exact same prediction written down pretty much, so I'm rolling with you on this one. I'm not betting against it.
All right. No one's betting against me. No one's betting against me. Everyone agrees, which is how it should be.
I've already used that joke once this pod. I'm sorry, Joseph. You're voted off the island. I don't know why I'm using your legal Christian name, but you're Joseph until further notice, or until Zach mutes himself again, and then I'll switch back.
Go.
What if they just run by committee? What if it's a committee by committee and the quarterbacks and the running backs just sort of all get an even push at it all? You never know what combination you get out there. That's not my bold prediction, but I did have this bold prediction prior to Daniel Cisneros rolling with this question, but it ties in beautifully. Predictions on the running back depth chart opening week. Guys, I think through training camp, no clear running back 1 is going to be kind of isolated from the group. I think the Broncos go committee here. They're going to run that rock, and they're going to use the running backs and the depth that they have. I know we've talked about the strength of the running back room, but I don't think there's going to be a Javonte Williams bell cow moment. I think it's going to be everyone sort of getting a different usage for their skill set. So I don't necessarily see anybody pulling ahead here. I think that it'll be even splits. It'll be maddening for everyone who wants to place some sort of caveat that Javonte Williams looks like he's returned to form, that Samaje Perine is somehow pushing him out, that your drafted running backs are pushing through. Kathy Schmidt. Schmidity. I never know how to say your name. Kathy, hi Bree, Joey, and Zach. Nix46 hashtag Bo is my QB1. I thought that said bowls, cool. Like bowl. And this is a Denver Nuggets pod all over again. I don't know how to quantify it, but I would say no clear front runner appears for that running back room, and that's simply because the Broncos are going to go in a little bit of a different direction here for the season.
I agree. I mean, Sean Payton has often used the committee approach with his backfield. I think as the season wears on, Estime is going to become the number 1 option. But I think even then, yeah, I do. I don't know. I thought it looked pretty rough with Javonte at the end of last season, and I'm worried it's going to be pretty similar this time around. So I think, and again, thank you, Kathy. But right off the bat, I think it's going to be Javonte in the lead. Like, I agree with Bree. It'll be a pretty even, I think, workload in terms of touches and snap distribution. I'd say between the 3 I project to make the roster, Javonte, Estime, and McLaughlin, excuse me. I think it'll be a pretty even split. That said, to get to the depth chart of it all, when they announce who's coming out, if it's a week where they're announcing the offense coming out of the tunnel, or I guess week 1's a road game, so it wouldn't even work. But if it was a home game and they were announcing the offense coming out of the tunnel, I think it would be Javonte Williams. I think he will still be viewed as the starter, the lead back, even though I agree with Bree, like on Madden, he'll be number 1 or whatever. But I agree with Bree. It's going to be much more of a balanced, everyone's getting a lot of snaps approach.
Yeah. I ultimately agree. I think all the talk about Jaleel McLaughlin, I think a lot of that is going to pick up in training camp. If I know anything about training camp, the Jaleel McLaughlin talk is going to skyrocket. It's going to be absurd. So all you're going to hear about is, man, should this Jaleel guy start? I think that might be another bold prediction. I should give, but I ultimately do think by training camp and after training camp, I think Javonte is going to lead the league or lead the team in attempts this year. I do think that, and I do think he's going to be your running back 1. Although it will be a running back by committee. I just think in attempts, like that seems like the conversation to me. I think it's going to be Javonte, and then a gap between the other guys. So,
and are you saying leading the league or just leading the team?
Leading the team.
Okay, because I misheard you and I went, Joey, what? That is extremely bold. But I could see a world in which that happens. I just think by training camp, you're not going to be able to tell up from down. It simply does not operate at the speed in which we need to be able to tell these things. I do think there will be some hot takes if anybody gets some clear breaks there. But preseason will be telling. And then, yeah, I could definitely see a world in which Javonte Williams gets the majority of snaps. But I'm trying to think, if Bo Nix is your starting quarterback, you probably want to rely heavily on that matter. Like that statistically seems like the most probable outcomes if we're discussing that. So yeah, I could see that happening. And at the end of the day, like you said, Zach, somebody has to be listed first, and somebody's the first loser, which will be probably me when we come to tally all these votes. Zach, bold prediction, even though yours kind of got stolen by Joey's. Do you have another one?
Yeah, I do. I will say it's funny that Joey just said that about Jaleel McLaughlin because another one of mine almost was. I didn't write it down, but when I was trying to brainstorm, I almost put Troy Franklin gets some. Troy Franklin should be starting at wide receiver buzz during training camp because to Joey's point, this time of year, like this is the Montreal Washington, Troy Franklin, Philip Lindsay time of year. Like those types of players I think look especially great. Here I'll go a little more tame with this one and then heat it up for my last one. If we do a third round, I don't know if we'll do a third round. What do you think, Bree? Let me know.
Let you know right now. I don't know. We're having a good time. Yeah, we'll do a lightning round, which will turn into about 14 minutes of pure chaos. But go ahead.
All right. Yeah. My least spicy one here. I'm saying neither Calvin Throckmorton nor Sam Mustipher make the final 53. I think
this is hilarious. I have the exact opposite take on my next one.
Both?
No, not on both, but you'll see. You'll see.
Okay. Well, so the Broncos are making, if you look at my interior offensive line preview link down below, the Broncos have a pretty solid interior offensive line, minus like the center position and like the last spot on the bench. There's like kind of those two questions here. And with those two question areas, the Broncos have bet on some young talent. You've got Gargiulo in the draft this year, and you've got Forsyth, of course, from last year's draft, as well as Wattenberg. Like these three kind of young homegrown pieces they're betting on to kind of fill their reserve roles and their starting center role. If that works, if that goes to plan, neither Calvin Throckmorton nor Sam Mustipher should make the final roster. The gamble here is, will, 2 7th round picks that we haven't seen play at all and a 6th round pick that we've seen play very little be able to hold off two guys that are pretty established veterans in the league? I'm saying they will. I'm saying get out of here, Throckmorton and Mustipher. The future is now, old man.
Okay, I'm going to make a guess here that I think Joey probably has Sam Mustipher starting at center. But I've got some positional versatility questions because Throckmorton, I believe, I'm trying to look it up right now just to confirm, but I believe he had some center starts as well. So the positional versatility alone, the fact that you're voting both of those guys off the island is wild to me. I think you have to have Sam Mustipher on the team. Zach, I don't think I'm not bought into the idea that Forsyth is your starting center, and I don't see how you start Wattenberg. I think it has to be Mustipher. So very bold, very confusing to me. I feel like I'm reading this situation a little bit wrong. Joey is smiling and smirking like he's got the upper hand here. What's the joker in the deck, Joey, that I'm not seeing?
I just don't think there's much value to your backup center also being young. I like, if I have a rookie quarterback at helm and I'm already starting a really young center for the first time in his NFL, like Alex Forsyth would, being a slated starter, I definitely would probably want some sort of vet in the room to help lead the way there at least between the two of them. So Bo Nix has an idea of what a veteran center or a center knows what he's doing looks like, and then also that your center can be taught by somebody. I just doubt that the backup center is also going to be a guy that hasn't started at center. Like I just have a hard time gauging that. I don't think, if I know Sean Payton, I don't think he would go that way either, being one of these older school coaches. I just don't see that. I think there's a developmental plan for quarterbacks, and I don't think having your center being a first-time starter and then the backup to that also not being ever a starter. I think there's value to having some sort of veteran presence in that room, even if he's not good enough to be a starter, just off of developing your center and quarterback. So I'm going to take you up on your offer.
I think you have veterans all up and down the line. You have, like, look at the rest of the line. It's 4 veterans, all of whom have a fair bit of familiarity in this system. I also think where I do disagree with both of you guys, I think they are big fans of Alex Forsyth. I haven't seen anything to make myself a big fan of Alex Forsyth.
I don't disagree with that.
I do believe that the Broncos are pretty high on him. And I don't think, especially considering, his history working with Bo Nix, I guess I don't know if they'll emphasize the veteran presence. And then also, how much of a veteran presence are you getting from Throckmorton or Mustipher? For me, it would be less about age and more like the age is part of it, but it's like the rookie contract more than the age thing. Mustipher and Throckmorton are on 1 year, $1 million deals as interior offensive linemen. During the year when we saw interior offensive line contract values skyrocket, these guys signed for $1 million, despite what Sam Mustipher started last year at center for the majority of the season for the Ravens, and Throckmorton started half the season for a couple teams, the Panthers and the Titans last year, and has played a good bit before that with the Saints. There's a reason they were available for so cheap. These guys are very poor offensive linemen. If you have these guys playing for you, you are in a bad way. Like Sam Mustipher is a veteran. He is a very poor veteran. Like if he comes in for you, your center position is in trouble. I think you probably aren't super inclined to burn your rookie, 7th round draft pick. Yes, it's a 7th round pick, but this is a team that needs cheap rookie players with like 3-4 years of cost control to start filling this thing out. Not a veteran that's going to be around for a year and then bounce to some other journeyman spot. They need to start building up the infrastructure. Yeah. And I think that's what it's more about. Wattenberg, a guy you have under contract for multiple years for cheap money. Forsyth, same thing. Gargiulo, same thing.
I think the part you're missing in this is like, yes, if I were just picking a center to block somebody, I would pick him. Or pick like Wattenberg or Forsyth or one of these guys. And I do think one of them's going to end up starting. I'm arguing who the backup's going to be. And this is going to lead me to mine, and I'll get to that too. You mentioned the 4 other veteran offensive linemen. There's the difference, though, between center, who's helping communicate blocking calls to the rest of the offensive line, from your quarterback. Like, Bowles isn't doing that. Miners isn't doing that. None of the other veteran offensive linemen have ever done that. That's like a different skill set than what Bowles is doing versus what Wattenberg or Forsyth would be doing. So I have a rookie quarterback and a rookie center calling blocking calls and making sure everybody's on the same page, which is typically your center and quarterback's job. That's who's doing that there. Your center's supposed to be the smartest guy. I was told that since I was a kid on your offensive line. He's helping communicate things to the rest of the offensive line. And none of those other veteran offensive linemen have that skill set. So I do think there's some sort of presence in that room that needs to be had. I think if it were just a who's going to block the guy better argument, I would totally agree with you. I just think that there's value between that, which leads me to mine. I think one of Forsyth or Wattenberg doesn't make the final 53. That was my bold prediction. I think one of them starts and the other one is cut. That's my that's my bold prediction.
I'm
All
running
of a
to take
sudden,
this
Will
one.
Sherman looks really good over there.
I'm sprinting to take that one. Yes, both those guys I think are close to locks.
Fair enough. Bree, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's too rich for my blood. I am on the side with Zach, so that means I will take you up on that bet. Although here, let me preface this to make it interesting because I want to hear what you guys think. Did you, after having this very brief conversation that I'm sure we'll jump into further, leave you more or less unsettled than you were coming in today about the state of the offensive line and specifically the role of the center? Because Joey, you've highlighted it and we've discussed it many times in the past that combination of Bo Nix and Alex Forsyth and Zach's point to the idea of development and needing to, get those key foundational points in line and figure out what you have and start the development there. It just leaves me feeling a little bit unsettled and a little bit more than I was coming into tonight about the state of that position, the anchoring responsibilities. And like you already said, it's not just a blocking ability. It's controlling the entire tempo of that line and the protection of that quarterback and reading the defenses. So I'm feeling not so great. And I know I wasn't feeling great about it in general. I kept asking that question of like, there's a very large concern for not having a starting center. The Broncos will name a starting center, but what does it mean for the rest of the season and for Bo Nix's development if that's not a great combination? Zach?
I think this is a very valid question and a very valid concern. Where I think disagree, or why I think Sam Mustipher will still be cut, is I don't think the solution to that problem is on the roster. Like, I don't know how much insight Sam Mustipher or valued insight in terms of the play calls and everything it is going to give you. Again, he and Calvin Throckmorton are two of like the lower end reserve linemen in the league. If that was a top priority to the Denver Broncos this offseason, why didn't they spend $1 million on Bradley Bozeman, who has more years of experience, has started way more, like double the games, has like double the snaps of these guys. And frankly, I think has been better, even if he's at the tail end of his career, for like very comparable money. They went with the young, inexperienced options. Why not go for Brian Allen, another more experienced option with more snaps? Like older veteran, near 30 years old, signed for very similar money. They didn't go that route. John Feliciano, available for like $1 million more. Way more experience. He's about 33 years old. Passed on him. Mitch Morse would have been slightly more expensive, but very affordable nonetheless for them. He signed with the Jaguars for about $5 million a year. Another extremely experienced guy who's been around winning. Been on this culture. Why go for the only thing Mustipher and Throckmorton has on those guys? It's not financial, it's youth. So that's why I think they're going to favor the young guys over the veteran presence.
I just have to say that if Zach is right on this, I'm a lot more worried about the offensive line than I was prior. And here's the reason. Like, just to put it in perspective for everybody, your offensive line coach coaches more players than anybody else, any other position coach on the team. Along with that, he's the one that is largely like the head coach or the offensive coordinator will give the O-line coach the plays, and the O-line coach is responsible for putting a blocking scheme in place to block for these plays, right? This is a lot of responsibility. This is the most important position coach you have on your team, largely, just because of the amount of players, the responsibilities you have, etc. If you're running an entire interior with nothing but youth, you have youth starting at center and you have youth behind them, and you're already trying to relate to 5 starting offensive linemen, like it's hard to continuously let a young center know what's going on. There's value to having vets behind those starters just to help when the offensive linemen do come to the bench and you have a question and they're showing things on the iPad, just having another voice in your ear. There's a lot of value behind that. Why they didn't sign those other guys, Zach, I don't know. But there's a lot of reasons. I ask that same damn question every year with every team is why the hell did they sign him? I don't know, but I ask that every year. I don't think there's a rhyme or reason. So I'm just going with the experience because I think that's important. I think it's really important to the success of this team. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was
literally speechless after that.
I legitimately thought Zach was talking again, and I was like, yeah, third time is sweet.
That was it right there. We need to clip that. Hey, get those great TikTok letters under that. That was it.
I wasn't thinking I was going to get to talk next. My bad. Joey, did you have a third spicy camp prediction? Real quick. I'm asking if you have a third one. Zach, you get to give your spicy one. I have a spicy one too. We're going to do this in a little bit of a quicker way because I want to get 3 in. I think it's important to do so. And I don't know, maybe I just missed you guys. I want to hang out and spend more time with you. I think because of the things that we've talked about, 16 open training camps to the public, very hot temperatures. You can factor in the Packers joint practice that'll be at the end of the festivities. I don't know why I'm getting sidetracked. I'm betting on 3 or more training camp scuffles that are going to be like, enough where somebody reports on them. It's happened in the past where some offensive linemen get a little handsy with the defensive linemen. Even if it's just a shove, if you get a report of a shove, somebody's been shoved, and it's not in the constraints of a football play. So things got a little bit heated out there on the field. I'm going to say there's going to be 3 or more of them. You can also factor in things like Cortland Sutton's contract dispute that still needs to be fixed, which, by the way, I think that gets fixed during training camp. And then just a lot of outside things. I've seen enough of these little handsy moments to think 3 is not out of the question.
Well, it's going to be a more physical practice than we saw like during, the Hackett era or whatever. Like they'll be going at it a little more. I don't know if I've ever seen 3 in a single camp. I feel like the most I've seen is 2. Maybe there was 3 during that Cowboys year, but that felt like such an outlier. Again, for joint practice against the Packers, maybe that gets chippy. I'll bet against you here. I'll take it.
That's fine. Don't forget about all the positional battles. There's something to fight for out there. Joey.
Brie, I'll take you up on this. I just don't see, I just don't see any like attitudes on our O-line, or I do on our O-line. I don't really see on our D-line. Like the year we had Randy Gregory and Draymond Jones, I'm going up. We're fighting.
That's true.
And nowadays we got like Zach Allen, pleasant guy. You know what I mean? Very pleasant, great guy.
You don't even have those ferocious linebacker duos anymore to cause any problems.
Cody Barton, like great, cool guy. You know what I mean? Like definitely awesome. Like we don't have any of those ferocious dogs that want to rip your face off type guys. We got nice guys that are also good at football. It's just a different atmosphere. Draymond, who remembers Draymond and Randy Gregory during that Cowboys practice? It was unbelievable. Yeah. That was the best thing I ever saw, man.
You're right, Joey. Now that you say that, I just went to go skim really quickly to see if I could find one person where I'm like, ooh, that's the wild card there. And as I was doing it, I was like, this is the wrong roster to do this for, because I simply do not see anybody who I've ever seen an inkling of like a ferocity from. Not to say that they don't have those moments in the games where they're really going to eat another guy up. I'm just thinking in practice, I don't see panches being thrown. I'm betting against myself in this.
Like even DJ Jones. Like I don't know. I mean, maybe fight Zach Seegers on Twitter, but I don't know about fighting people in practice.
Nick Bonito, I don't think is the most like feisty. Like I think he's really good, but I don't think he's like
all great guys
on an edge.
We got a bunch of great human beings.
There's a stand-up citizen. Everybody gets to watch Nana on the weekends. Like it's just a good group of individuals.
Yeah,
that's why it's going to be bold.
Purcell was a fiery guy who would like get in fights.
Yeah, you're
I've
right.
seen some Mike Purcell fights. So
We're missing out.
removing him from the equation, that makes it even less spicy in the
Oh God, Vance Joseph, man, I miss my. Shout out to Vic Fangio. Vic brought the dogs. That's who I want over here.
So stupid. Zach, what's yours?
Okay, Joey's been going at me this whole episode. He's going to go at me hardest for this one. But I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm being consistent with something I talked about on one of our position previews recently. You know what? It's not going to be popular, but you know, you've got to see it before everybody else. And I see it with Greg Dulcich. Greg Dulcich is going to be this team's week 1 starting tight end. That they won't do the call out of the tunnel thing or whatever, but they'll post a depth chart. I'm pretty sure he will be tight end 1. I already want to defend this because I know I'm going way out there on that limb, but I'll wait.
He's I got this. Don't worry. Zach is wrong because when he was healthy, Troutman was even the starter last year. Like, I just he was healthy and Troutman was still the starter. If he was healthy this year, Troutman's still going to be the listed starter. I just no disagree.
Listen, I feel like you're pulling at the heartstrings. It's like he landed swiftly in the middle of this like current. One's headed upstream, one's headed downstream. Of course I want to believe this. I just don't think that that's what's going to happen. I want it to happen. I think it's a possibility, but I don't know. I think they like Troutman too much. I think that there's just no realistic capacity. Even if he shows out during training camp, even if he walks in, not a hobble in sight, hasn't had a complaint or an ache in like 12 weeks. I don't think he's a starting tight end. I think he'll have to earn that throughout the season. So I'm going to fight you on that one. And I hope you're right. I gotta take a smart bet here because I already dug myself a hole and I can't get out of it.
Joey brought up a good point with the starting thing last year. I'm not going to lie. But I would say this on Troutman. I think what Troutman showed last year was so uninspiring and unimpressive.
Was the ability to get down. He uncanny. But anyway.
But, I mean, like we talk about, it's been several times, like I feel in the last month, we've talked about the rotating door of, you know, very similar Broncos tight ends. That just, it seemed one could just easily take the other spot and you wouldn't even notice. Even among those guys, Troutman sticks out as especially non-productive, like fewer receiving yards per game than like Virgil Green or like AJ Derby or Daniel Fells, like really way down there. He had 200 receiving yards last year and he was healthy for the entire season. Like as low wattage as the Broncos tight end room has been for a while now, I think it was low at its like least spicy with Adam Troutman. I do think, and again, I could be projecting. I do think that's something they want to project. I don't think they love Adam Troutman at all. And maybe it ends up being Lucas Kroll that steals it from him. But I think healthy, Greg Dulcich is the best tight end in this room. The problem is he's never been healthy at all. And I acknowledge that. That's incredibly concerning. It's hamstrings. I would feel so, I don't know. It feels to me like people are too low on this guy who's had hamstring injuries. It's been a lot of them and it's been a lengthy amount of time, but man, when he was on the field, he was pretty dang good. And it's just hamstrings. Like it's not a patellar tendon. It's not an ACL. It's not a back. It's not one of these incredibly troubling injuries.
I'm going to push back just a little bit. There's also the foot mystery that we don't know. So that feels like a pile of sinking sand that neither of us can navigate. But also hamstring can be a lifelong contributor, especially if you're thinking it connects through the IT band, and is it ruling into like a posterior like issue with his sciatic nerve? Like how far stretching does this hamstring injury actually go? And also once you injure that muscle, it's not like it heals back and then everything's all hunky-dory. Your whole body starts to go into having to compensate for the lack of movement and the lack of durability there. So I guess we're going into an anatomy conversation when you start. Like, yeah, I think Greg Dulcich is the most talented tight end on this roster, but his body is in a state of constant flux and prohibitiveness. I feel like we should call the cheat code Mario Vitanzi and get his final notion on the anatomy of the human body and what that means. He obviously can't, speak directly to the case, but I think saying, it's just a hamstring injury is like, I think that's glossing over how severe those can be and long lasting.
I guess I don't know the players who've had their careers ended by a hamstring. I can find a long list, but we're not talking about hampered. We're not talking about like, oh, he's going to be out there for 5-6 games this year. People have completely written him off as like he's not even on the team anymore. Might as well be, or like he's not going to. I think everyone's envisioning it's going to be just like last year, where he plays like 5 snaps or whatever. And I think it's just way too low. Like, will his career be hampered by continued injuries? Probably. I bet this is a player that is injury prone for his whole career. Nonetheless, I don't know. I've seen guys' careers get ruined so many different ways. I don't think I've ever seen it happen by hamstring before. And the foot thing does scare me. That is a different wrinkle. I'm still betting against it. To me, it feels like the stock on Dulcich is too low right now, and I'm buying the dip. That's really kind of where I'm at.
Like when you think about like Joey, one more thing. I'm sorry, I've gone into doctor mode. When you think about hamstring being injured, is it a complete tear? Is it a marginal tear? Has it constricted the length of the actual muscle itself? So I don't know. I have questions. I want to see like MRIs and stuff. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah. I also, though, haven't heard of players having to relearn how to run or whatever off of hamstring injuries. I just think there's levels to this. Yeah. That's all. Like, I just think what we've heard from Dulcich is a lot more concerning than your average hamstring injury. I think it's in its own box. It's like saying, I've never heard of a player, of some crazy injury we haven't heard of before, because it just doesn't happen very often. It seems like Dulcich's hamstring is just different than others. It just seems like this is a different beast we're trying to tackle here. He even came into this season not right so far. So, like, what are we talking about? I don't think we should expect anything from Dulcich right now. If he does do something, that's just icing on the cake of this Broncos season. I would love for him because he's an extremely talented player. I just no. I think everybody's hype level is in an appropriate level right now for Greg Dulcich. That's all I got, guys.
Hype levels. Did you give your third, Joey? Did I?
I will real quick, and then it'll rapid fire. Marvin Mims, I think, will be looked at a lot by many people by the end of this training camp as, man, is Marvin Mims the best wide receiver on this football team? I think that'll be a common sentiment you will hear from Broncos fans after this training camp. Spicy.
I agree that'll be common, but I don't think that he'll be the wide receiver one. So how do I take this bet or leave it?
I don't know, guys. This is for you to figure out.
No, because I'm going to figure it out, and then people are going to get mad at me for scorekeeping it. I would say if there's an article written about it, I think
I'll write the article.
And publish it on letstalkbroncos.com.
If by a different outlet writes about it, like, hey, is Marvin Mims the best receiver on this team? I think that would count. I think that's a fair metric and something we can actually track. And if that's the metric, oh man,
then absolutely that's happening.
Yeah, I don't. I what would happen? I mean, come up with a better definition. You can't just leave something totally open-ended.
Yeah, yours doesn't count.
It is so funny because, like, when you make it a metric, he could be terrible, and that's happening this season. I'm telling you, that's 100% certain to happen. I bet if I go and look at it right now, there's probably already an article out on this subject matter. Yeah, that's happening. I mean, there's going to be is a Samaje Perine the best running back? The Broncos. Should Zach Wilson start?
Okay.
We've seen all these. Shout out the fans.
Qualify it with how quickly it happens, I guess. Like maybe that's your parameter because that's definitely happening.
Yeah,
that's not
we're
bold
rolling
enough.
with you right now. No one's taking that bet, Joey.
Maybe we just don't keep score of this one, and you guys just agree with me.
Never mind. We've gotten rid of it.
Joey, also, before we get out of here, I would like to point out that Joey, the guy who's always getting on us for not having bold enough predictions, had I think I took him up once this entire show, and that was it. He had 6 opportunities for someone to say, that's a bold prediction, Joey, and it happened once, which was the lowest batting average out of any of us. So least bold the person of the episode, Joey Richards.
When I win, just keep complaining. Like, yes, I'm back-to-back winner for a reason.
No, that's how Zach got away with it so much, is that he was just in line, and
Zach wasn't bold and still didn't win. Anyways, let's
I did win.
All right. We'll pick this up again. I can't wait to do bold predictions for the preseason and for regular season games. Stay tuned. We'll be keeping track, and we'll be back with another episode on Friday. Keep your eyes peeled, keep your eyes open. Head on over to letstalkbroncos.com. Subscribe right now so you don't leave a cool comment, like the stream, comment, let's make Zach cry. I don't know if we're still doing that or not. And come find us out at training camp, because we'll be out there throughout those weeks, those 16 days in the 100-degree heat, just to meet y'all. So have a good one, and we will see you on Friday. Bye. Go Broncos. I remember this time.